A very good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we have with us Manoj Pavitran, who will be talking with us about concentration and various practices that we can incorporate as part of our day-to-day lives. I'll very quickly introduce him. Manoj Pavitran grew up in Kerala and he graduated as a production engineer. He had a deeper quest that led him to Sri Aurobindo, and he started following the path of integral yoga in 1989. He's also the founder of Integral Education Portal, and he'll be talking about the theme that we had for last month, which is concentration. Over to you, Manojda.
Thank you, Palak. Thank you everyone for joining us. So as Palak mentioned, this is our second month, second theme. And our dream is to connect with people who are into integral education in their daily life, as integral education is a lifelong journey. It will be good if you can mute your... Okay. So since integral education is a lifelong learning journey, we are looking at how do we connect and learn together from each other. So I would also like this session to be more interactive. So before our sharing begins, so I would like to set some context of concentration itself, what we had been sharing, and then we build on that. So as most of you probably already know that the very first principle of integral education is that nothing can be taught. And that's a very shocking statement. But then it is only one half of the statement. The other half is that all knowledge is already there with him. And the challenge is how do we bring that out? how do we allow that to rise to the surface and reveal itself? Just like a seed has the potentiality, and how that unfolds. And what is the role of concentration in that? And this is where actually concentration come in, the power of concentration that brings this forward. We can see that in children, they have this natural propensity. Even a newborn one, as begins to crawl, there is propensity to walk, propensity to talk. Then this curiosity, to follow upon the trails of curiosity and fascination. And there is a very natural propulsion towards that which is fascinating. And a young child is a natural learner and effortless learner, spontaneous learner. And unfortunately, what happens is, in the process of actually going to the education system, that natural curiosity and the power of natural concentration gets stifled. And then that inner propensity gets more and more veiled. And as we grow up, we eventually come under that crust of artificial formations, and we lose that natural propensity. So in ancient system, we can see that the use of concentration was the key to even to open up that internal crust that builds up, and to open up that internal possibility to rise up and to reveal. And I would like to give two examples. One is from, say, Taittiriya Upanishad. Other is from Sri Aurobindo's own life. There is this Upanishad where Bhrigu, a young boy who goes to his father, Varuni, to learn. So the condition, the readiness of a student is known by, are you curious? Curious to know. And we can see that even in the highest exploration of, say, Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, where are you ready for a higher exploration? That readiness is indicated by your jitnasa or curiosity, readiness to explore. So the son goes to his father and tell him, look, I want to know about the absolute, about the divine, about the Brahman. And father notes that, now the boy is ready. And the ancient method of opening that inner veil and that inner power of knowing, or inner knowledge bringing forth, is concentration. And this involves various faculties. So what his father tell him actually gives the clue. Father says, Annam pranam chakshushrotram manovacham iti. That's a Sanskrit phrase. Annam is the food that you eat. Pranam is the breath. Chakshu is seeing. Shrotram is hearing. Manas is that thinking activity that is happening. And speech. So these are the 6 faculties. Father indicates this is where you begin the journey. You concentrate on these 6 things. Eating, breathing, seeing, hearing, thinking, speaking. And these are happening all the time. And these faculties are awake and alive all the time. And this is through which our exploration of the world is happening. And then father gives the clue that what is it to be explored. So he tells son, you explore by what everything come into existence, by what everything is sustained, and by what everything returns, into what everything returns. So that was the only clue. So there wasn't any lengthy discussions, lengthy discourse, nothing. Just this phrase. These are the 6 doorways, and you explore how everything takes birth, what sustains them, and into what they return. So the son returns, he goes back. Then every day, no matter what activity you do, whether grazing cows, milking cows, doing the daily chore, so you have your eating food, so you're exploring from where did the food come, what sustains food, to where it does it return. Similarly, I'm breathing, I'm seeing, I'm hearing, I'm thinking, I'm speaking. From where does all this arise? What sustains it to what it returns? So the concentration is on that key idea, using these doorways in daily life activities. So he persists week after week, till the knowledge awakens from within. He had his first realization. So he goes back to his father and tell him, look, I have realized, I found that everything is born out of food, sustained by food, and they return to food, they become food for everything. Everything is nothing but food. What these days called the food chain. He discovered by his own continuous meditation how everything is born out of food, sustained by food, and returns to food. Then father says, what you have discovered is good, it's right, but not sufficient. You concentrate further, do your tapas. So that's a method. You concentrate, you open one layer, goes back to the teacher, validates it. Okay, that's the right thing, but not enough. You go deeper. So he goes back to the meditation, to the concentration in daily life with these 6 doors. And many weeks passes and he realizes the second level. Then he rushes back to his father and says, now I found everything is born out of breath, the life-sustaining force. Prana is the birthplace of everything. And everything is sustained by prana, everything returns to become that prana. Everything is nothing but energy behind all the forms. Father says, yes, that is right. But there is more to the journey. Concentrate more. So there was no there is no teaching from the father's side. Father is only saying you concentrate. What you found is correct, but there is more. You concentrate further. So that also illustrates the role how a teacher is guiding. And he goes back and explores and explores and explores, and he comes to this third realization that everything is nothing but mind. Everything is born out of mind, sustained by mind, and returns. Everything is nothing but that. Pure ideas, mind and its knowledge. And he goes back to his father. Father says, good, what you found is good, but not enough. So he goes on exploring till he come across the 5th one. The 4th one was Vijnana in ancient vocabulary, that is in today, Sri Aurobindo translate that as supermind. And beyond that, he goes to Ananda, where he discovers that everything is born from delight, sustained by delight, and returns to delight. And he goes back to father and reports this. And then father says, now you know. You have experienced it. You discovered it through your own concentration. And say, now you're ready. So that illustrates the process. So you use the normal faculties of our awareness. There is the eating happenings, there is breathing happenings, there is seeing happening, hearing happening, thinking happening, speaking happening. And through all that, we're looking at that which we wanted to explore. And he realizes. And in that, there is what we would call the knowledge by identity. You become that. You realize that you are that. And I want to bring in how Sri Aurobindo was using that methodology in his own exploration. So when he was in Alipur jail, he took up the transformation practice from the Gita. He took a mantra from the Gita, Vasudhaiva Sarvamiti. Everything is nothing but Vasudhaiva, the divine. And that's the idea. Now you concentrate on that idea with all your being, with everything that you do, everything that you see, everything that you hear, everything, whether you're eating food, you're breathing, seeing, hearing, thinking, speaking, everything is nothing but that. And he did his tapasya on that line, and he comes to this realization, this profound experience in the Alipur jail, where he experienced that the tree is nothing but Vasudhaiva, the jailer, the bed that he was sleeping, the floor, everything is nothing but that. And it is that which is acting through him and guiding him and doing everything. It is that realization. And it is, again, the power of concentration. Now, you can see the central importance of the method of the ancient way of learning, where it is not through analysis, but through concentration. And in that process, that which is within and around reveals itself. So first thing that arises through process of concentration is knowledge. Second thing that arises is experience. Third is you become that which you want to become. And the same, like, it's not only any external objects that we wanted to accomplish or no, even our internal status. Say if we want to establish peace or silence within, concentration is upon that, and we get experience of that. First knowledge, then experience, then we become that. And only when we become, there is the true way of knowing by identity. So that's essentially the process, knowledge by identity, by becoming what you are seeking. So that is the potent method, which these days are not so much known, practically lost. We are pretty much into dispersed analytical mode, but this is an incredibly potent method. But for that, mind has to be trained to do so. And particularly these days with the social media, where the mind is, the eyeballs are grabbed by the media competition for our attention. It is hard to pull ourselves out of it. But precisely this is where the skill is to be developed. And this is where the biggest challenge is today. Also, this is where greatest potential is for learning and transformation. So with that, I would like to open for questions, sharing, and from there we can take it forward. So you can raise your hand and open your questions or sharing.
Yes.
Yeah, Abba.
Am I audible?
Hi, Manoj.
Yeah, Bhagwan.
Abba, first.
Yeah, I wanted to, could you shed more light on knowledge through identity? You are essentially embodying it, right?
Right. That so that there are 4 levels of knowing. First is through external indirect sensory contact. Say when you know, you see a person, you see through your senses, but you have no access to the consciousness of the person. What we see is the face, the facial expressions, what they say, we can hear that, and we are translating it. So first level is external sensory contact. It is an indirect way of knowing. Then there is a second level. We are using our process of thought and intelligence to interpret and know. So a person says something, we are translating it in our mind into our own language, our own understanding. So that is secondary, where thought is much more intimate to us. The thought is happening within us, thought as an object. So that second level, we are a little bit more contact. Third level is, say, when we can say the level of empathy, where we are beginning to have the contact of consciousness with consciousness. When somebody is in pain, you feel the pain. And that's very natural for a mother to feel the pain of her child or the joy of her child. You feel it within you. There is an intimate contact. It is not through a verbal description or external secondary contact. You feel it, it's within you. And the fourth is where truly knowledge by identity at a deeper level, you are that. But that type of knowledge, we have access only to ourselves. Like when we look at ourselves, I am that, my pure being, but it's bound within my little body. And to which a little through empathy, we get to know through that infusion, other people's emotions, sensations, all that. But this capacity of that level of being can be expanded to such an extent by voluntary choice. We can tune in to open ourselves to experience other people or the things much more directly, intimately, as we know ourselves. And that's a very, very advanced form of knowing. Third level is much more relatively accessible, that intimate contact of consciousness with consciousness. That's where empathy is, the beginning of empathy. And to go beyond is first to establish that a deeper stillness of being. Upon that, the doors open up. So we can see in mother's explanation, the way she named the flowers. She takes up the flower, she identifies with the flower, and she knows the flower as the flower knows itself in terms of its consciousness. And she gives it a name. That's truly the yogic spiritual way of knowing something. Whereas our modern objective way, the scientific way, is through separation. You are looking at an object, you are dissecting it, understanding its physical processes. It is something that is separate, and then you try to put it together. Whereas here, it is at the level of the being. You know the being of the flower, being of the animal, being of the person in you. And that is where the knowledge of oneness, and though oneness is a very romantic idea, in practice, it's far more challenging than anything else, because even at the level of empathy, it's way too challenging. If you open up way too early, the stuff that comes out from outside and the kind of mix-up that happens, and the kind of, practically the world is in a mess and you are in the mess. So unless you have the inner foundation established, these doors opening is also dangerous, because you cannot handle the influx that come from outside, or even your own subconscious rising up. So there are these levels of knowing. Indirect way of through senses, then there is thought, then there is sensing directly, the intimate contact of consciousness, and then at the level of pure being.
So basically, you're able to experience another consciousness while being aware that yours is another kind of consciousness.
Yeah, it is this me and you as a separation is actually a limitation of our cognitive faculties, particularly that of the mind. As we go deeper, so the training is to establish silence and stillness. So the distraction is minimized, and that is where the opening also happens. And when you concentrate with that level, you open to that and you become that, whether it is an object or person or a thing. And we can see when mother is talking about even training of the senses, she talks about how you can project your senses to distance and know things that are at distance. But these are these days so unknown, or treated more as an occult or paranormal phenomena. But these were pretty much capacities that can be systematically trained. So what happens is, as you establish increasing stillness and silence, it is like a baseline. And then from there, with the power of concentration, you can project it at distance and to focus. And through that focus, things start coming towards you. And you get to know within you. And it arises more as that intuition, direct seeing, direct being. So these are ranges of faculties that are not so much known, though traditionally it was known, but today it is not. There is no training of such faculties.
Thank you, Manoj. That answered it a bit.
Thank you, Manoj. Ram, would you want to go next?
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
So I was practicing what was suggested in the portal. So the Tratek practice.
Yeah.
And one thing I observed, so I just wanted to know if there is any reason for that. So initially, by mistake, I kept the candle close to me and for 2 3 days practice like that. And after that, I noticed that it was suggested to keep it at a distance of 3 feet and do this practice. So first 2 3 days when I kept it close, I after some time I started sleeping, I started feeling sleepy. And when I kept it at a distance of 3 feet, the sleepiness even started increasing. I felt like that. Maybe it's an illusion, or is there something happening really?
It's difficult to say because it varies from person to person,
Okay.
because each one is a context, and what happens in that context is unique to that person. We cannot generalize if the distance has a particular way of impacting. That is difficult to say, but 3 feet is generally a comfortable distance. It is more coming from the point of view of ease with which you can concentrate.
But apart from the distance, also, is there any relation between the concentration and getting sleep or relaxed?
Sleep, normally what happens is the moment we concentrate, consciousness also tend to go slightly inward. And the body is so used to inwardization as sleep state, because every night we are going inward through sleeping. So any inward movement, body translates as, okay, there is time to sleep. It begins to shut the doors. It's a habit established in the body consciousness. And it can be changed. And this usually happens to anyone who try to concentrate without any external object or internal object. You tend to fall into a kind of a dreamy, sleepy state, because body has not much idea that it can stay awake, or the mind begins to shut and withdraw from the senses. It disconnects from the senses and go inward. It can be retrained by repetition. The more you focus and bring little bit active form of concentration, that slowly keeps you tied to the body, you will not withdraw from the senses, you will not go too much into the sleep state. It's a
Some,
habit.
Somewhere I also read that someone was asking mother that she was having a deep sleep whenever she went to sleep after looking at the candle or the flame. Uh, so mother was giving answer like it also helps in getting a good sleep. So that's why I thought maybe some correlation maybe is there with what is happening in me. That's why I got this question.
Yes, the like even before sleeping, a little bit of concentration to bring all the scattered energies in a gathered state and to a peaceful repose is very, very helpful in getting very good sleep.
Okay,
And
thank you.
Yeah, you can also use that time to give direction to the subconscious or unconscious activity. Say, for example, you want to get up in the morning at certain time, you can tell that to the mind and enter sleep, and it will have its impact.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Manoj. Before we move on to the next question, we have a question over chat from Sanjay ji, who is asking what is the difference between concentration, meditation, and mindfulness?
These words are used in many different ways by different people. So we need to find each one's definition. In integral yoga, the word meditation is used in the sense of it's purely a mental process where you take up an idea, you think about it, think through it. That is, you are meditating upon something, and there is a continuous process of thought associated with it. Whereas in concentration, if you take up an idea, you don't think about it, you just concentrate only on the idea and go to the essence of it, wait for revelations to arise. Whereas in mindfulness, if I understand correctly, the way things are being taught is about becoming aware at first at the sensory level, what is present. It helps you to be aware of the present moment, what is happening. In concentration, it's not enough that you have awareness of what is present, but you're looking at things from a perspective of what you are directing at, what you're seeking. There is a search, there is a focal point. Just like we were talking about Bhrigu's story, where he was concentrating with a particular thing that he wanted to know. Similarly, Sri Aurobindo was concentrating with that particular focus. So there is an awareness of what is present, but from that lens. So these are the three different modalities.
Thank you, Manoj. Manan, would you like to go next?
Yeah, thank you. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, you're audible.
All right. Namaste, Manoj. So my question is actually the same. I wanted to request you to share your thoughts around concentration and meditation, and what are the similarities and distinctions, if you so deem fit. So I think that question is, anyways, answered. So I just wanted to thank you for the two stories that you shared. I think they're very inspiring stories for all seekers. So thank you so much for that.
Do we have any more questions? Anybody would like? Uh, yes. Leela, do you
Yeah,
have a question? Yeah, please go ahead.
yeah. So, Manoj, um, when what Ram was saying, okay, so when I'm concentrating on the flame, maybe initially I am present with the flame. After that, also I'm present very much with the flame, okay. It's not that I'm distracted, but at the same time there is somewhere after some time another, but my mind is running, but I'm looking at the flame, I'm very much with the flame. This sometimes happens to me while I'm watching my natural breath also, like initially I'll be on with the natural breath, but after some time it's like I know the incoming breath, I know the outgoing breath, but my mind is also engaged elsewhere. It's like your concentration is divided. How do I work around that?
This happens. Initially, there is a fascination, and once you know that this is what it is, mind has this habit of putting one part of it in that job, and the other part naturally goes exploring other areas. So this first is to become aware of it, and you have become aware of it. But what is to be seen is that part somewhere has been given a sanction. You have somewhere accepted it and allowed it to go in search of something else or dwell on some other ideas. So that permission that you have given, because there is a part in us that can actually see all that are happening, witness, and witness also has the power to withdraw that sanction that it has given. One is simply observing that this is happening. That is passive. Second stage is not to give that sanction. This is where the will of the pure being come into the picture. And that witness has that pure will to redirect it back to the flame. So we need to look at how you have somehow accepted it, that this is fine, it's okay, it's happening. And it is happening without my knowledge or without my wanting it. So whatever be the way we have accepted it, look at that and say, no, it is not required. I can change it. So that choice and the will that comes with it immediately puts it back. And this is a very crucial point. What we're doing is the gathering of the energy. And there is this pure being that is gathering everything, and pure being has its will with which it is directing. Though it can witness on one side, in its next stage of progress is mastery. Before it masters, it's know that it is happening because I have accepted it. I'm not a helpless witness to it. I can redirect it. That conscious choice needs to come within that I can redirect it. So there is no more sanctioning, no more acceptance of that second part. Or if it is done, it is by choice. So by not giving that option, you bring it back. And with that, the power of will also increases. And you can direct the energy where you want it. And you can begins to enjoy it in the later stage when concentration becomes natural, things don't get dispersed. It's almost like you're training a wild horse and then it learns to follow your direction and it will obey. So it is starting with that ability to really not to accept these movements and redirect it. The being has the will to do it.
Thanks so much, Manoj.
Thank you, Manoj. So next we have a very interesting question that most of us have in our journeys. The question is from Naveen: how to differentiate intuition and the voice of the mind ego? Is it? Yeah.
Yeah, the voice is happening all the time. That is almost like a record player going on and on and on. And intuition has, there are ranges of intuition that are beyond, above reason, and there are ranges of intuition that are below reason. What is below reason is what we refer to more as the instinct. And it is pre-verbal. So anything that is pre-verbal, when we say that is a gut feeling, it's not a voice in the mind. It is a sensing that happens from within. It's pre-verbal. And there is a knowing that is pretty much at an energetic, deeper level. And there is an intuition in the heart that is more of a psychic discernment. That is far more finer movement. Here again, it is not so much the word that is used. It is a finer feeling, that truth sensing. So when we study, say, the Vedic model, they refer to four movements of intuition. One is called Sharama. It's a dog that senses and finds the way. So there is this faculty in us that discerns through its direct sensing. And there is a knowing that is certain. It brings clarity, it brings certitude. There is another way that heart brings knowledge is foreknowledge. It's like that's also another word for faith. Tagore refers to that as faith is the bird that sings before the dawn. Light has not yet come, but the bird knows that it will come, even when it is really dark. So there is a part in us that knows, even when everything is, the mind is clueless, but something in us knows, but it cannot explain. All these are pre-verbal. It is a inner sensing. Then there is trans-rational levels of intuition where when you establish the silence and open upward, one begins to receive two different forms of intuition. One is called inspiration, Saraswati, and other is revelation, Ila. Ila and Saraswati are the ancient Vedic goddesses representing this flow of intuition coming from the plane of intuition. And the reception is two different forms. One is flow of words, but it is not mentally constructed, and it comes with its own knowledge, its own rhythm, its own patterns, and it has a certitude, and it comes in and clears the clouds of confusion, and it establishes its harmonizing, clearing ground. And revelation is more imagery, the reveals through images, and you see it in flashes, and there is a deep certitude that comes with it. None of this has any characteristic of the mental chatter or noise that goes on happening in the mind, which is, there are various ways of this mental chatter happens. One is purely habitual, run by the physical consciousness, kind of machinery that just runs. Then there is purely sensory response. There is a sensory contact, and there is something in us that is verbalizing and responding to it through thought and images. And third is with when there is a sensory contact and there is an emotion that is rising up, and from there along with it there is stream of thought that happens. That's another third layer of thought that happens. And beyond all that is the pure operation of rational intelligence using the faculty of reasoning capacity. That is relatively rare. We use it when we need it, just like a tool. And after use, when there is no problem to solve analytically, systematically, when we leave the tool aside, it will get gripped either by emotions or sensory reactions or by habitual physical consciousness. And all these are happening in the mind in a continuous stream of thought. In fact, this actually veils the arrival of intuition, whether it is transrational intuition trying to enter, or what is coming from the heart, or what is coming from an instinct level. All this, what happens is when this arises and when it comes, they get mixed up with the thought layer. So as it gets mixed up, as it passes through, it gets distorted, fragmented, and what you get is actually a caricature of the true instinct or true intuition in the heart, or an inspiration or a revelation. So for all this, again, that silencing, quietening of the mind become very fundamental. So it's like a baseline in which you can receive what comes from within, what comes from above, or what comes from outside. So what is coming? To discern, we need a baseline. So to discern all these different types of movements so that you can pick up. And whenever there is a little ray of intuition, an awakening ray enters, there is an insight that comes with it. And there is a momentary glimpse of seeing something. There is something there, but it's a fleeting moment. And if you don't pay attention to that fleeting moment, it's gone. So whenever that fleeting moment shows up, capture it immediately, but don't think that that is a final knowledge. It is just a ray finding its way. So you collect that little glimpses, and over a period you will find patterns. And the more you become quieter and receptive, more it pours in. So there is training required to discern this, and starting with this moments of insights where the glimpses of seeing happens. But our instrument is, when it is not trained, when it is clouded, when it is constantly thinking and analyzing and busy reacting to things, there is no space for intuition to show up. Even if it comes, it gets completely distorted. So all this points to the necessity for training the mind, training the senses, training the vital. So all these are brought to peaceful repose where they can actually receive.
Thank you, Manoj sir. We have the next question from Shivam with regards to the video that you have shared on Mondays. Shivam, if you're on call, would you like to unmute and go ahead with your question? Okay, I can ask on his behalf. So in your video, you have warned against observing the observer. He thinks that he has been doing that, and he believes that it has led to some confused mental states. How can he undo the damage?
It's great to recognize that I have made that mistake and got stuck with that self-conscious state where you cannot really act. You get somewhat locked up within you. So the trick is to forget about yourself. Just like a child watching an ant, it's just the ant, nothing else. So anything that we do, we are not doing it with a separation. Though in the early stages of our training, it's important to learn to separate the observer from the observed, preparing the ground so that we have these two birds, the one who can witness and the other is engaged in the activities. And at a later stage is integration of the two, the marriage of the two. You are simultaneously, you are the action as well as the enjoyer of the action. The witness and the actor is one and the same. So there is no separate me doing it, it is that which is happening. So here, one crucial thing, this is also very closely tied to Karma Yoga, where because of our mental consciousness separating itself and looking at itself as an observer looking at the world, feeling itself as an isolated entity with a limited capacity, when that identity is replaced with the identity that you are or what is happening through your body, this is only an instrumental condition. There is this universal being that is looking out through you. It is looking out through other person, looking out through the animal, through the plant. It is living through all things. And I'm only one of the inlets or outlets for it to act in the world. So the more you recognize the presence of that universal being behind all things and all forms that are moving, including this form that is talking, this form that is doing, this is all instruments through which that is acting. So there is the removal of the doership, the thinkership, even the observership. It is that which is acting through everything, and it is also opening up your windows of perception and helping you to perceive because it is clearing the ground, clearing the cloud, clearing the clouds. So you begins to see the search for who am I, in a way, blocks that. Because this me, non-existent me in that story is to be replaced with that, the supreme being that is behind all things. It is that which is acting through everything. And to see its magic, the way it is acting through everyone and everything in every situation and every circumstance, it is speaking through you, it is seeing through you, it is acting through you, it is acting through everyone else. So you are no more identified with your body, you as a separate observer, but it is that which is acting through everyone and everything, and you're fascinated by that and its ways and the way it is molding you and guiding you and shaping you and opening up your windows of perception. And surrendering to that, in that process, you forget about you, and it is that which matters. The supreme being behind all things. It is that is the self of all self. So that is where the focus needs to be brought in, so that this separate you is erased. In that process, when you are not there, what is truly meant to find expression through you, your true individuality, what that want to express through you will find its expression. So this is also essentially the karma yoga, where it's like saying you just get out of the way, let that do everything, and you become more and more of an enjoyer of that. And there's a process of deep surrender, and you see that you are only an instrument, and it becomes so vivid, so clear. And even you surrender your thought, and you are looking at thought as if you're looking at a movie screen, where revelation can come, inspiration can come, and it is being streamed to you from the universe. So, and force can stream through you, words can stream through you, and you're opening yourself to that too, and it is that which is doing. So, and the doership entirely goes to that, when you're not the doer. And even the witness in you, the enjoyer in you, even it is that. There's a beautiful line from Tagore, I believe. He said, it's when I sing, God in me is most happy. You know, he was multi-talented person, and he used to do many different things. He said, it is when I sing, I know God is really, really happy. So you are an instrument, and that divine being, the universal being, uses you for various tasks. And some of the tasks, it may find you are the right one, the right instrument, you are the perfect instrument. And when that happens, there is a spontaneous joy, and you know that the divine is taking delight in you.
Thank you so much, Manojda. Purushottam has two questions. Purushottam, would you like to ask both of your questions? All right, I can go ahead. So, Manoj, the first question is, could you kindly differentiate between concentration, attention, and awareness?
So the awareness is purely the field. You can know things. There is something outside, there are things inside. Then there is awareness of what is, like the observer itself. There is an observer in me. Whereas in attention, there is already a direction that is happening. You can direct. Awareness can be general. In attention, you are taking the awareness, giving it a focus, and directing it to this object or that object, outer object or inner object. So the awareness belongs to the being, and being directs, gathers its energy, focuses it, and that's where the attention comes in. Attention is gathered. So that become a concentrated attention. Otherwise, attention is wandering. Attention is part of concentration. Unless you gather attention, you cannot concentrate. Concentration is a gathered state of attention itself, a wandering attention. So there are, let's say, three things. The being that is observing has the will. Will belongs to the being. With that will, it can take back its wandering attention. Left to itself, attention will wander from one object to other object. It's becoming aware of this or that randomly. From that random jumping process, will can take the attention and say, now you focus on this. Instead of wandering in multiple things, you just focus on this, and that become concentration. So there is a will that is used, attention is taken and directed. And not only mind's attention, but also the entire energy is gathered. And even the physical movements are gathered. And totality is gathered in concentration, directed. So there is will, there is attention, there is concentration, and there is the being has the awareness of all this. Habitually, these are scattered. We are emerging from the unconscious, and in the unconscious, there is this dispersive process of the unconscious random movements. From randomness, we are bringing in consciousness, or into randomness, we are bringing in consciousness. So our everyday life activities are happening in a autopilot and kind of random way. And this randomness of movement of attention, when you observe the way attention is moving, it is being caught by external sensory contacts and it is jumping from one thing to other, and this become quite visible. So from there you pick that up by the will. You first become aware of that random movement of attention and then gather it, direct it, then it become concentration. They're all different facets of the same being and its very different faculties.
Thank you, Manoj. That was really insightful. The next question is from Luke, who's asking how to concentrate and manifest on long-term goals.
Here is concentration applied across time into the future, where what is these days referred to as the vision board or an ideal or an idea. Concentration is upon an idea. So for example, Auroville has a charter and a dream where a vivid description of an ideal society is given. Now that's an image that we hold, an ideal that we hold. So that's held in consciousness as a ideal to be accomplished, and there is a reality in which we are bound. So if you want to manifest something, first we need to focus on an ideal that we are trying to manifest and clarity on the ideal. So we can see now these days, every startup, when they get into their beginning, they try to identify their specific problem they are trying to solve and what is the vision, what is inspiring vision. So having a picture, a vision board of that dream, that ideal, that is the anchor that we use. So this is where I want to go. And the more you focus and spend time on what exactly is it and how do I accomplish it, the more it begins to reveal what are the practical steps to reach there. So when you constantly come back to it, look at it again and again and again and again, and mind get absorbed into it, you start living it, you start seeing it. Even if it is not manifest, you start living that as a reality. Like when early days, when people came to Auroville, they were encountering a barren land. There was nothing. But in their mind, in their consciousness, they are living in their dream. They are building a city, physically non existent, but it exists as a pure idea, an inspiring vision, a vivid image. And that's the anchor. So from there, from this blank ground, the barren land, it begins to transform. This is the current reality, and from here, I need to reach there. So we have the peak of the Everest visible from distance, but here is where I am. So we need to have the vision of where I want to go, how it looks like, how it feels, so that something inspiring and energizing, and you're really committing to it. And when it really lives in your heart, you know, slowly it grows and everything is gathered. So whatsoever you do on a given day, when you're eating food, you're looking at that food. Is this food, the way I'm eating, is it going to take me there? Is it the right food that will take me there? When you're buying something, is this object going to take me there? No matter what you do, what networks you build, what relationships you build, you're always looking at from that perspective. Is all this going to take me there? So there is a purpose that is required as a dream, as an ideal, as a vision. Then from there comes the path. How do you reach there? Then from there comes the practice. Right now, this is what I do. Or whatever I do now, it must be oriented towards that. That is the way to manifest. So if you don't have a vision, clarity of the vision, then there is no direction for energies to be gathered and organized. It is not enough that momentarily you got inspired, then after a week you forgot about it. That won't work because your energies are getting scattered. So it's important to find that dream, but you need not build it something like this is my lifetime dream, but start building at a short-term goals. Like this week, I'm going to do this. This is something that inspires me, and this is a small task I can do. Concentrate and nothing else but this, and make it happen. In the process, what happens is you encounter different parts of your being pulling in different directions, and you have to direct them, organize them so that you accomplish the small goal. Then you take up the next one. Okay, for 2 week task, this is what I'm going to do, and make it happen. So there is a seeing, foreseeing of a possibility, and then gathering of all the instruments and making it happen. So you train systematically. 1 week to 2 week to 1 month to 2 months, 6 months. So you build up the capacity of doing, foreseeing, planning, and doing. Without that training, this won't happen. So everyone finds inspiration one way or other, but it comes and goes like waves because you don't sufficiently train the faculties, the will of the mind, the impulsions of the vital, and the laziness of the physical. All that are to be trained so that every part of our being obeys the purpose that we set ahead of us. So as they begins to obey more and more, we can set more and more longer term goals. And as we get organized and harmonized, and the action become more and more effortless, and you increasingly enter into flow state, and then longer term visions get revealed, and you begins to see where your life is being directed and where the society is being directed. What is your role in it? All that gets revealed, and you fall in place with the larger whole. So you need to start small, setting goals, seeing it clearly, using all the faculties, and build it step by step. Through that, the manifestation capacity grows steadily.
Thank you, Manoj. Since we are at 9:30 and we have about 7-8 questions more, Manoj, how do you want to take this forward? Would you like to respond over email, or can we take a couple of more questions?
We can take a couple of more questions, and then you can share the questions over email. The rest I can also respond maybe in our integral education page.
Sure. So I think we can take one last question then.
Yeah.
All right. So the question is from Kamini. She's asking whether there is a connection between the practice of Tratak, in bracket she's writing concentration, and dreams becoming highly vivid. The more vivid they become, I'm left wondering what is the usefulness of this experience or reason behind this.
Interesting
Shall I
question.
repeat once?
Yeah, maybe read once again.
Yeah. Whether there is a connection between the practice of Tratak, concentration, and dreams becoming highly vivid. The more vivid they become, I'm left wondering what is the usefulness of this experience or the reason behind this.
Usually the dreams become vivid when our wakeful state itself, we are developing increasingly heightened awareness. And when the subliminal or other ranges wants to communicate and the linkage begins to build and more symbolic dreams begins to show up, they also come with richness of color, richness of emotions, greater intensity. It is also an indication of that inner opening up more and more and communicating with the surface, and how concentration plays a role in it. One cannot generalize it. It's probably certain readiness in you, because as we begins to gather, and when you already have certain past formation that are just ready, and when it begins to gather this attention, the doors begins to open up pretty fast for some people. So that could be, but the key thing is there is a inner opening happening, and that's where this richness of dream experience come in. That inner doors are opening up, the subliminal ranges are opening up, you're becoming conscious of it in the sleep. Now it will have its impact in the wakeful state. On wakeful state, what you do will have its impact in the dream state. In the wakeful state, when you are creating this focused concentration, your mind is also becoming increasingly alert in the process, because you are able to direct it increasingly with precision and focus. That means you see things much more clearly, vividly, and that will have its consequence. So maybe with that, shall we end today's session?
Yeah, thank you so much everyone for joining. Thank you Manoj for sharing very beautiful and very practical insights on concentration. So friends, every month we will have such interactions. We have our next interaction in 2 weeks, which will be on beauty. We will be sharing the link and the poster and the announcement on the Integral Education portal page. So looking forward to seeing all of you there. And in case you haven't subscribed to the newsletter, our next theme is beauty that we are about to start. So yeah, looking forward to seeing you more. Thank you
Thank
everybody
you
for
all.
joining. Thank you
Thank you.
Manoj.
Thank you, Palak. Thank you, everyone.